online in places where people talk about role-playing games, in conversations where people talk about problems they're having with role-playing games, what can tend to happen is that bidden or unbidden advice of some kind and of varying quality will flow. And if we take the time to look at it, as has been pointed out many times in the past, it usually breaks down into three specific types if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, it will basically be useless. If you're lucky, it will be a reminder that this is a social hobby, and therefore, if there are problems, one of the first things that you can do is talk to the other players about the problem as if you are friends, or as if you were adults, or as if between you, you have the capacity to solve problems for the group, by the group. Talk to the players. You will also, if you're lucky, be reminded that the selection of game is important. You'll be reminded of the second rule: play the right game. Now, sometimes that detail gets confused either by the people who receive the advice or by the people who are trying to give the advice into the concept that some games are better than others for all people, which is ridiculous. What is not ridiculous is that there are a small set of games which are great for you and your group right now. And probably there's a limited range of choice for the exact thing that you're trying to do. Play the right game. In other words, don't try and take game X and mutate it through force, house rules, social contracts, and other types of manipulation into something that it's not. Play the right game. Decide what it is that you want to do as a group. Talk to the players. Find the game that does that. Play the right game. And then play it. Last, and this rule is sadly also misunderstood, we are advised not to be a dick. Or in other words, don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. Be a part of the group. Be active. Be proactive. Be interactive. Don't be a dick. Be a part of the group, communicating, of the group, finding and playing the right game with your cheerful and effective participation. Now, that can be taken too far. We might feel like our needs, our interests, our desires should be completely subjugated to those of others. But when we think about the Holy Trinity, as it was put out by Samuel G., when we think about this, we realize that this is a part of being a group, of choosing to play together, of choosing to play a specific game together, and all recognizing and communicating and sharing how that will be of value to us. And when things get out of balance, addressing it, not from a point of view of selfishness, but from the point of view of the group. Each part should be getting value out for the amount of effort they're putting in. And if they're not putting in any effort, if they're just being passive, then look at that third rule. So, is this video about that? Not exactly. But we've been doing a lot of, not a lot of, but we've been doing actual play on the channel and with other channels associated with the role-playing game learning group to kind of model this process. One, it's how most of us actually just play. So what you're seeing is what we do. And two, if we're going to go to the effort of making our play public, we want it to have some value, such as being an example of what it is that we actually do. So let's imagine that your group is ready to try a new game. Whatever it is that they're playing now has been great, but people are feeling the desire to try something else. This could be moving from science fiction adventure, such as with like a Star Wars style game, into a period piece like a Call of Cthulhu type game, or whatever, from fantasy to mystery, right? From fantasy adventure into fantasy mystery, or from fantasy adventure into modern mystery, or modern adventure, or whatever it is. And part of this decision might include seeking out the right game to play. So how does that all work? Now, before you run off to grab your notepad or your tablet or whatever so you can start taking notes, nothing is going to be very groundbreaking in this video. But sometimes we need a reminder, or sometimes we need connection with other people who do what we do to discover that they do what we do. It works. And, benefit from the solidarity of it. So, first step, you're going to play a new game. Talk to the players, play the right game, be a part of the solution. So, read. You will need to read. You will need to, follow your interests, look through the lists of different role-playing games that are available to you, whatever they might be, however they might be limited, and make some choices. And then read them. Once you've read them, take time to think about them. If possible, take some of them out for a spin, test some of the mechanics, share some of the ideas, talk to the players, choose the right game, be part of the solution. Sooner or later, something within the group is going to grab hold. Sooner or later, there's going to be some traction with some of these ideas. And that's the point where we need to move into evaluating, right? Talk to the players, play the right game, be part of the solution. What are we actually going to play? Because play is the next full step. After we've made our choice, after we have discussed how it's going to work, after we have evaluated how we're going to make it happen, then we play. We commit to play, we put out the parameters for play, and then we do that thing. And we follow it through to the end, because one of the parts that I see fall by the wayside too often is that it takes time to learn. And it takes varying amounts of time to learn different things. You might have someone who quickly takes up the setting and has trouble with the mechanics, and you might find the reverse. And you might find someone who has zero interest in some parts of the setting, but is very, very interested in others, and so on and so forth. There is a specific alchemy to the way that your group does something, and it's ridiculous to assume that a single session of play is going to communicate great amounts of understanding to all the members of that group, or even any of the members of that group. It is going to afford you some experience. But the more you play, for a longer period, looking at more of the things that arise from play, the more you will begin to understand. But understanding also requires discussion, which is another way to say talk to the players. Be a part of the solution. So, we set a period of time to evaluate the game through play. Every once in a while, whenever the mood takes us, we discuss what's happening. We evaluate what's happening. We communicate with each other, and we keep going back into the text to read, because we are going to discover that our new experience, which is moving us toward greater understanding, is going to have that text communicate itself to us differently. We'll gain different insight into what was meant by a specific turn of phrase, or the layout of a particular chart, or the assignment of difficulty, or the choice of one mechanic over another. Things will start to make sense over time. If we leave out the time component, then we sell the game short, we sell our group short, we increase the effort and minimize the benefit. We must be prepared to fill in the blank. So when I say read, what do I mean? Well, there are several stages to it. First is actually reading it. You choose the game, say Broken Rooms. You take it off the shelf, or you open up the PDF, and you open the game to the very beginning, right? And you read until you get to the end. Now, there are some games which have huge spell lists. There are some games which have, a bestiary of creatures or opponents or something like that. Does that mean you should read each one? Is there a reason why you wouldn't? Start from the beginning, move through. If some part of it starts to seem like it's going to prevent you from continuing to read, skim through it. Make a note of what's in there, right? But look for the next thing that really grabs your attention. Give yourself an overview of the entire book from beginning to end. Learn how the book is laid out and what's in it. And, in that read through, if there are periods that are saying, oh, I don't want to read this, maybe you don't actually want to play it either. See what I mean? If you can't get through it just reading it, if the excitement can't even, or the motivation can't even keep you in motion at that point, maybe that's a signal that this is not the game for you, right? That there could be something else. So you read it through once from cover to cover, and then think about it, evaluate it, talk about it, try pieces of it out maybe. Let it sit a little bit, and then go back in and read it again, but differently this time. Initially, we could say that we were skimming. This time, we're scanning. We're going back into it to look for specific things, such as, how do I do this? How do I make a character? How do I do magic? Or how does combat work? Or how would I manipulate a security guard into letting me into the computer lab in exchange for a free medium pizza? That kind of thing. Be specific. Go back in and learn specific things. Now, how does the game sit with you? Are you still excited? Are you still motivated? That's cool. Communicate some of that excitement to other people. In this game, this is what, how it's going to work. Remember that thing that we did in this other game, right? There might be instances where we do that thing in this game, and this is how it works. It's pretty cool. Be a part of the solution. Then, sooner or later, you're going to get to the play point if you've made it that far. And getting to the play point means now you have to go in and read with the intent to learn. This might mean taking notes, making cheat sheets, This might mean arranging for 1, 2, or 3 members of the group or the whole group to come together to do one specific thing: generate characters. Talk about whatever it is that the game wants you to talk about, such as, are the players going to be contributing to the setting in some way, maybe through the creation of backstories or the creation of NPCs that are linked to their characters, or whatever, right? Do those things. Work together. Get toward your session 0, where you're finally at the point where you can, with intelligence, forethought, and foreknowledge, announce to yourselves, to yourself, to the group, we're going to play this game. This is how we're going to play it. This is when we're going to play it. And it starts next session. That's pretty cool, right? And that is what is meant by reading. It all begins. Our hobby is based in text. It all begins with reading. So, the game has been chosen. The game has been read. Session 0 has been had, and now we're into play. So we play. We have fun. This is what the hobby's about, right? We become a part of a group that plays the game. Maybe it's Blue Planet, Star Wars, Stormbringer, Pirates and Dragons. Who knows? Now you're playing the game. Have fun. Talk to each other. Somebody's character does something awesome, tell them. Someone reveals a side of themselves as a person that you didn't recognize before. They've got some kind of talent. They're a wizard at math, or who knows what. They can play the piano. It doesn't matter. Connect with them on the personal level. This is a social hobby. We form a social group to do the thing. Play the game. Have fun. Be a part of it. Learn your part. Bring your character. Know who your character is. Understand the rules as they apply to you. Understand the rules as they simply apply. Play the game the way the game was made to be played. Play is the fun part. Play is the easy part, in a sense. And play can, possibly should, generate all sorts of discussion within the group, and life will be going on around you all of the time, and giving you plenty of opportunities to talk to the right players, make sure you're playing the right game for what people want to do, because eventually, if you're into playing more than one game, eventually there will come a time when it's time to move on to the next game. And above all, as people go through all the things that happen to them in life, and as the game has its good periods and rough periods, be a part of the solution. Play is the fun part. Now, sooner or later, if we're talking to each other, if we're willing to play the right game, and if we are choosing to be part of the solution instead of ignoring things or being an actual part of the problem, sooner or later we're going to recognize it's, as we did at the beginning, it's time to choose a new game. Before we just go out and look for something new, like, wow, I've really been wanting to play Keltia or Yggdrasil. I really want to try the One Ring. I really want to do Hollow Earth Expedition, or, hey, we said we were going to do Space 1899, right? Before just jumping, it's time to evaluate. What worked? What always works? What worked this time because of this game? What worked because of the choice of players? What worked because of life, the universe, and everything? What didn't work? Among the things that worked, what can be preserved, bolstered, strengthened, improved, and transported into the next endeavor. These things will probably be purely social between you and your group. One game shouldn't automatically play exactly like the other game unless the system is staying the same, if you know what I mean. Evaluate what worked and how to protect it or rediscover it or encourage it to flower again. Evaluate what didn't work and what must be addressed before we start all this all over again, because time is continuing to pass. And the things which were minor inconveniences at this point in time may blossom into major annoyances over here further on down the timeline. And we don't want that to happen, which is one of the reasons why we are talking to each other, why we are committed to playing the right game, and why we are refusing to be a part of the problem and choosing to be a part of the solution. We must evaluate internally and as a group, open-mindedly and with honesty. And this is not the time to point fingers and say, you know what? You are the problem. Right? What is it about us that with interaction with this game or this series of games or games like this or games in this genre that isn't working for us? And what can we do to address that? And if there's nothing that can be done to address that, then what are we as adults going to do about that? And sometimes that means that when we as a group choose to play Stormbringer, that one of us is not going to play. So, read, play, evaluate. Sometimes what we realize in our evaluations is a little difficult, but that's life. And sometimes what we realize in our evaluations is awesome, and that can be surprising, and that brings you closer together. And I feel that if you have been talking to the players, truly being committed to playing the right game and truly being committed to being part of whatever solution is necessary, that rewarding experience should be more likely. So now, discuss. Talk to each other. Talk about what has happened. Give it its due. Enjoy it. Celebrate it. Criticize it. Critique it. Tear it apart. And get ready to use that experience for the next experience. Truly, seriously, honestly, openly discuss. And get ready for this entire process to repeat. Repetition is one of the foundational concepts of learning to do anything. If our intention is to grow and improve over time in something that we are choosing to do, whether that's for work or for pleasure, hopefully work can be pleasure, it's going to take repetition. It's not something to shy away from. We develop patterns. We make patterns part of our tools and part of our way of being because repetition works. So, this simple 3-step ideology and the way that actually breaks down into the steps of preparing for, doing, and then saying goodbye to a role-playing game experience, it follows a clear pattern. And it's one that we can internalize and take with us into other activities. The benefit of role-playing games, as it were. So, this, little longer, as usual, than I intended, but this is sharing the process of how, over a very long time, from my perspective in my life, I've been able to be a part of successful groups that have been able to play short campaigns, that have been able to play very long campaigns, that have been able to keep role-playing games as a part of our life for all of our life so far. And, you know, if this is something that you're doing too, or if this is something that you're feeling your way toward, I hope that this video can show you that you're on the right track, that it is possible to solve problems between you. It is possible to learn new games and then get them to the table. That it is possible to have a period of time where a game is run, where you get to explore it, put it through its paces, enjoy it, and put it aside for a while, or maybe forever, moving on to the next game, cycling back to an older game, who knows. But this activity, in a sense, is just like any other. And by that I mean that it involves us. And we bring ourselves to the activity. If we're not willing to be an active participant in it, if we're not willing to be a part of the solution, if we're not willing to recognize that there are games out there which do the things that the people in our group desire to do, and that by working together we can simply learn them and expand our options, expand our abilities, expand our interests, expand our circle of relationships, and so on and so forth. And we can do this together as a group. So if you want to see examples of this in play, look at the actual playlists on this channel, and you can see us taking on games that we're not sure about. You can see us taking on games that we are very sure and happy about, and you can see us, having fun, being a group, talking to each other, going through all of these steps, both the basic ideology of talk to the players, play the right game, don't be a dick, and the step-by-step process of read, play, evaluate, discuss, repeat. Thanks for watching.